Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Endless Celts Podcast. Delighted to be joined by Willie Ross. How you doing?
This has started so random already. I am good. Apparently, he's doing well as well, by the looks of things.
What about yourself, Willie? You keep well?
I thought I was still hidden at that point. Yeah. I'm alright, man. I'm alright.
I'm gone already. No, but delighted to be joined by us. And as we know, it's a Friday evening with us at the end of the Celts. And as you see already, I mean, whatever Willie was doing at the start or whatever dance move he was trying to do, it looked quite well, buddy. It looked quite well. But we'll have to get stuck into our show sponsor, Sharna. Get involved with that. 10% off the description below. The prize for the Super 6 will eventually be here in the middle of September for Stephen Coulthard. That will be posted out to him. And we'll be getting wee t-shirts of ourselves. And if we look at as well, we do want to do this properly this year, kind of bring up tables, not the Super 6 again, if it comes up on my screen. So at the top at the moment, Kevin Gallagher, and then second, Alistair Jack, third, Mark Robertson, fourth, Jamie Latimer, fifth, Phil Tomlinson, sixth, Kieran, not even going to pronounce that, seventh, Bethany, eighth, Jamie McElduff, and finishing off the top 9 is Kevin Hampsey at ninth place. So, I mean, in regards to that, Ross, seems like it's shaping up well. There's more members in it, so get involved with it. Still very early on. Get in there. I mean, where's Franny this year? He's not even in the top. That's a bit strange.
I think he's sitting about 13th or something. But he had a poor. I think he only got 2 points the first week, which was 2 more than me because I forgot to do it. But long way to go.
A long way to go, exactly. Jed's in, Eve and all. Alistair Jack as well, even Stephen and the Cray twins. I don't know if the Cray twin would have been spotted doing what Willie was doing at the start, but we'll get stuck right into it. Willie, I know. Obviously, I don't want to ignore the. I will try. True, actually. Yeah. I don't want to ignore the stuff that's been going on, but I do want to start on a brighter note. And I mean, Rogers confirmed there's going to be contract talks for Abada and Atate. Obviously, the latter of that, Rio, seems to be a wee bit stalled. Apparently, he's happy with the situation. He's waiting to the end of the window to assess what he's going to do. You can kind of understand that. But for me, 2 vital players under Postecoglou. Abada started quite well under Rodgers. Hatate's been injured, but the fitness starts of him we've seen, like the 12-minute cameo he had in the previous game before Kilmarnock. He looked decent. He looked like he was up for it. I mean, getting these types of guys tied down with McGregor, with Dyson, with Kyogo, I think, in relation to whatever's going on in the transfer window, it's good to get your best assets and long contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. My connection might be a wee bit dodgy, so if it is, give me a shout. Bear with me. It's went a bit at the start there, but I think we're all right. Yeah, I mean, before the summer came in, Hatate was, for me, that should have been a number 1 priority to get him signed on, because I just think he's different class. So, but it seems like everybody that we are start contract talks, we get injured. So just stop offering contracts out. No, but these 2 especially, and I think Abada's going to be. I know we'll probably touch on him a bit more later on. I think he's going to be quite big for us this season. So, and another future prospect that I think could go for big money in the future. So it's only it's an obvious thing to do to get him tied down in a long-term contract, so that if somebody does come in. If somebody does come in, they're going to have to pay the big bucks for him.
100%. And like you said, I mean, Ross, Willie's right in a way there. Abada seems to be one of the key players already under the Rodgers kind of evolution from what we're seeing, starting on the right-hand side. Yeah, he's maybe the last couple of games with the team in itself hasn't played the full potential, but again, that will come. He scored a goal and stuff like that. He's assisted as well, and I think his numbers have been there for all to see. Even in previous seasons, he wasn't really starting all the games, but his numbers and goals and assists were up there with the best in the team. Then you look at Rio. I mean, we all know that the quality player he is, and the speculation around his future can't be ignored, but he's injured at the minute. I don't think a team can take that opportunity to sign a player who's going to be out for nearly, what is it, two more weeks past the window. So unless something miracle happens, I think he'll be here at least until January. But if he's willing to sign that contract, again as well, kind of the caveat that if he's looking away, I've heard people say this, or if he's assessing options, should we just cash in on
him? At the moment, the way the squad is, no. I think it'd be too much of a risk. I think we need to keep him, because to lose a player like Hatate would be a massive hole in the squad. And I know he hasn't been getting, or he hadn't been getting starts under Rodgers, but I mean that'll come. But I don't think at this late stage in the window you could afford to lose Hatate. Absolutely no way. I know we've got a lot of midfielders in there, but I don't know. We look a bit lightweight. I hate saying it, but we do. But in terms of Abada, and by the way, I heard during the week, in fact, that Hatate had rejected a contract. Was that just BS?
Apparently, it's come out again. You know what Twitter's like? It runs wild. So Stephen McGowan said he's stalling. He's not rejected it.
Right.
He's stalling, I think, until the end of the window to see what's going to happen, I suppose.
The gaffer said the talks are ongoing. He says the talks are ongoing in that presser yesterday.
Did he? Right, well, whatever it is, right, it's no signed yet. Whether it will be or not before the window closes, it doesn't really matter. They can sign it at any point. I'm sure that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
But people will say, if he's sort of keeping his options open, just get rid of him. But we're not in a position at the moment for me to get rid of Hatate. I think he will go eventually. Of course he will. And we'll get a really good fee for him. But I just hope that certainly we keep him to at least January, because it gives us that bit of leeway to maybe find a replacement. Whether it be in this window or not, I don't know. It's highly unlikely. In terms of Abada, listen, good to get him an extension on his contract. I've made the case for Abada since Rodgers came in. He could be he's sort of Scott Sinclair on the right-hand side. I'm beginning to think I was talking shite on that, because when he came back pre-season, he was looking good. He was looking like a bit more beefed up, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
But he just seems to have went back, sort of reverted back to type, where Abada is a really effective player at Celtic Park. But when he's away from home, similar to Turnbull, I think he fades out the game. He got his goal at Pittodrie. That was pretty much all he done. He didn't do much against Kilmarnock. For me, I like... I'm sort of going off on a tangent here, but I like Abada and I like Maeda, both as players for our team. But in a game like Sunday, none of them can beat a man. They couldn't commit a man. Everyone was in front of Kilmarnock. So I'm beginning to think that maybe Abada won't be this. I was saying he could be Jota's replacement. I don't think he will be. I don't think he can deliver consistently enough. As I've said before, he'll score probably more goals than Jota did. But in terms of his sort of what he brings to the team, it's well short of what Jota would bring. But I mean, we're obviously going to touch on transfer stuff a bit later on. Talk about this Palma guy. But listen, these guys, to keep them in the squad is brilliant, and to get them tied down in longer term contracts is also brilliant if we can do that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Me trying to be positive and you turning it and flipping it and talking shite about being Sinclair. Abada's not going to be Sinclair. No, I get what you're saying, but no, I know what you mean. He is totally ineffective when it comes to a low block and away from home. But I think Rodgers, if there's going to be a coach, in my opinion, to get that out of him, it will be Brendan Rodgers. We've seen it before. He can improve players. But see if we ask what I asked Ross there, Willie, in terms of Hatate, just to bring it back again. Obviously, there was rumours. The Brighton thing, they obviously that go with Casado for record-breaking money, over 100 million quid. There was that rumour that Hatate was like literally in line to replace him. It's gone quiet. There doesn't seem to be any club sniffing around him. But to kind of pose a question to you, if he's stalling on the contract, waiting to see if it comes up, should we afford him that opportunity? Or should we be like, yeah, they're signing it now, or you can get out the door?
You see these negotiations and people automatically just think that the player is stalling because he wants away. Him and his agent might think the deal that's been offered isn't good enough for what he's... If he's signing a long-term contract, he needs to do what's best for him in that regard. And if he feels he deserves more money than that or whatever, then agents are fucking nightmares. And I don't think it's as easy as sitting down and saying, you're going to stay? You're right, okay, let's go and do it. It's obviously a bit more drawn out than that. So I wouldn't, personally, I still think he's got long enough in his contract anyway that it's not a necessity to get it done right this second. He's still got another 3 years to go. So
Yep.
I don't think it's the end of the world. I would keep trying to get him to sign it. Possibly next season when we're looking at just a couple of years left and it's not happening, then I would maybe look in the summer starting the next season. But right now I'm not worried at all. I think he'll sign. I think he's a quality player. I think in terms of us going into Europe, he's one of the massive focal points that we need going into in that midfield. I think we need Rio Hatate to be successful in Europe. Unless we bring somebody else between now and next week. But I think he is absolutely massive going forward this season. If he puts in any the stellar performances he did last season, then he'll be a big, massive influence for us. And I'm quite happy with the way things have gone with him. I think he'll probably will sign a deal. But you know me, I'm a glasses half full type of guy. So, and I've been proved wrong many times before. So he'll probably fuck off next week too. But, but as of right now and here and without knowing what we're going to do between now and the end of the window, I think it's imperative that we keep hold of him. But I mean, he's injured anyway, so he's not going to go anywhere this window.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Confident at least until January, and like you said, maybe next year look to cash in the chips on that front. And I think as well, you look at Rio Hatate. You mentioned Champions League football, Willie. He's probably our best performer in that level. The Real Madrid games, that pass he took on the volley from Ivanovic throw-in, just banged it over to Jad on the left hand side. There, bits of quality don't go unnoticed. And Palm's in. Nice to have you along, Palm there. Mark Campbell. He really wants Yang to start. We're going to come on to different players later on the podcast. And I liked your comment earlier about what Yang and Abada could offer on different wings. Abada being more direct, Yang having the tricks. And I do totally agree with that because it seemed like we played like that last year with Mieta and Jada. So maybe Rodgers with Palma, who we'll come on to, might want to look at something similar. But Ross, let's get stuck into this week and what we've seen. I mean, me, Franny, and Mark Kearney from the Bhoys Bus did a podcast on Monday, and it was kind of assessing, but when I watched the podcast back, it wasn't assessing because I think we were still maybe a wee bit up in high dough, kind of saying things indirectly, do you know what I mean? And blown out of proportion, that type of stuff, me myself included. We've had a week now from that performance against Kilmarnock and round of the Cup. We've seen on the Twitter go mad, user on Facebook, I don't know what it's like on there, people go in different groups, going absolutely insane. And you look back on it in hindsight, right? Do you think it's warranted or is it just a major overreaction?
It's absolutely a major overreaction. Listen, Celtic haven't started the season at full flow. They aren't playing the exact same football as Ange ball. Ange is all out attack. We've been used to that for 2 years. Really fast-paced football. It's slowed down. Everybody thinks it's not good. It'll take a bit of adjusting. They didn't think Rodgers' football when he was here the first time wasn't good. So he's not doing, for me, a great deal different. And he's not completely changed the style for me. So, listen, I'll say it again. They haven't started the season as well as you would like. But you have to take into account the injuries we have. We've obviously lost. These aren't excuses. These are facts, right? We've lost Jota. We've lost Moy. We've lost Arfield. They're big players in that team last season. We're now without Carter Vickers, who hasn't been fit for the word go. We've no Johnston. We've no Hatate. Signed a new centre half to what looks for all the world Starfelt's replacement. He's looked all right. He's injured as well. These things all add up, and they all sort of. And I know that obviously we had Navroki playing on Sunday, but these things all add up, and you have to take them into account. Celtic aren't in full flow, but they won the first 2 games, and for me, they looked a bit dodgy defensively, but I put that down to we've got Ralston, an out of form Greg Taylor, who's trying to adjust to different wee tweaks. I don't think Rodgers is telling him to play an out-and-out overlapping fullback, but also don't think he's telling him not to play the inverted fullback. But Greg Taylor is finding himself in the inverted fullback position in a lot, and I don't know if that's an instruction, or he's just finding himself in there by habit. But Celtic have played well against Ross County and Aberdeen. They played well in phases, and their quality shone through, and it got them through the game. None of them played well on Sunday, but it's 3 games into the season. Some of the reaction, I don't see much of Twitter, but some of the reaction on Facebook, and listen, I understand people want to. I think we said it at the start of the window, right? There was all this rumour of McTominay and all that coming, and it's built the fans up like this. And the media are. We are playing right into the media's hands, because the fans are now up in arms because we aren't spending that money that, by the way, we were never going to spend. And now, coupled with that performance on Sunday, it's just went like that, and it's just exploded. And there needs to be a bit of calmness amongst the fans. They need to understand the injuries we have. And listen, we'll get these guys back. Rodgers has said we're looking at 4 players. I don't think it's going to be like panic buying. I don't think that for a minute. I think they've got a strategy. It's just a bit later in the window because Rodgers has come in and assessed a squad, and he's starting to work out who's going to be good enough for him and who's not going to be good enough. He's trying to get rid of some of the dead wood. It's going to take time. Listen, I've heard you saying, Stephen, it's becoming a rebuild. I can understand where you're coming from to an extent because of the players we've lost, but I think it looks more like a rebuild because of the injuries. I really don't. I don't know why people have went so crazy. It's 3 games. There's plenty of time. I know we need to ride this period out, right? Because we are absolutely slaughtered with injuries. Slaughtered. And we've got Ibrox coming up, and I know everybody's worrying about it. See, if Ibrox was in October, people wouldn't be going as mental because we've got that leeway. But what people need to remember as well, we've also got a 3-point lead. At the start of the season, if somebody told me, I'm not saying we'll go to Ibrox and lose, by the way, we could quite easily win that game. But if somebody told me at the start of the season, you've got Ibrox, was it 4th league game of the season, you'll come out of that and you'll be level pegging. I would have assumed that we've won all our games and Rangers, well, that obviously you would assume that because that's what would happen, but I would have took that. Do you know what I mean? To come out level pegging and just ride this period out, because Rodgers and Celtic have been hit with a really, really poor run of luck in terms of injuries. Ride it out, get through it. Let's see what the next week brings and go for there. But the team still on Saturday should have enough to get a result against St Johnstone. You go to Ibrox, you're missing a lot of big players, but you just never know. But listen, I would snap your hand off for a draw in that game right now and remain 3 points clear. But Celtic fans now, they're totally up in arms, and it is because it's been built up by the media and all these rumours that we're going to sign X, Y, Z. It was never going to happen. I want us to spend a wee bit more money and a maybe £4, £5, £6 million player. I was saying a couple of weeks ago, maybe up to £8 million. I don't see that happening now. It's no the way Celtic work. We're obviously looking at this boy, Palmer. Don't know nothing about him. It's £3.5 million. But he seems, he's sort of assists and goals ratio looks no bad. He's had a bit of experience he playing like in a European league. You just don't know. But by all accounts, he's a guy that's going to commit defenders, and we need that in the team. We're lacking that, really. Apart from Yang, there's nobody else in the team that can do that. But the reaction, wow. Total monumental.
It felt like to me there you got a lot off your chest, and it also feels like to me. It also feels like to me Willie's just cocked and loaded. I've seen him lean into his mic a few times, like he just wants to get in. But see, to be fair, for myself, you know me, I'm very reactionary. I just go off the cuff. But see, to be fair, well, Willie, you know what I mean. See, to be fair, like I did it on purpose by standing away from looking at the arguments from the outside and being like, what's people thinking, what's people gauging this? And one thing that I put in the chat, if you remember on Sunday was, or maybe not Sunday, the day after Monday, Willie, was the fact that it's Rodgers, and there's still people in the camp of they didn't want him in, and the first sign of any kind of crack in the squad or a defeat or drop points is like fire, brimstone, bang, bang, bang. It's all this. And you referenced the form, Ross, and I have to say, like, maybe people are angry as well because it was like no one understood what system we were trying to play against Kilmarnock. It seemed to be all over the place, and we weren't getting the foot in the ball. They were bullying us, athletic. They were more physical. We struggled to cope with that. The low block, like you said, the wingers didn't suit that. Why did you not bring Yang on earlier? So there's different types of situations where maybe we could have done better in, and I think some fans are angry about that too because, like you said, we haven't caught fire this season, like straight away. But again, it comes back to the point that Rodgers is coming in, and we know, me personally, I think he plays a totally different brand of football than what Postecoglou does. It's more methodical, slower in the build-up, and when they get in the final third, it gets quicker. So from a fan-based point of view, after 2 years of Postecoglou, you know yourselves, we're quick, we're up there, we're scoring goals, we're gung-ho, and then you're changing, and people aren't expecting that. But Willie, to come to you, again, you have been involved in some online spats, let's say, but I mean, I get it, why and stuff, but again, I'm seeing both sides. Where are you sitting at the moment?
Very frustrated, but probably for the opposite reasons most are on social media. I have been getting involved, and I never get involved. I said it before in this podcast. This is my platform here. I don't feel the need to. I used to get on all the forums and all, but I don't feel the need to. But the last week or so, I have. That's a good point about Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, nobody's disagreeing with the fact that it's not been the best of starts. Yet we've won 2 of the first 3 games we've played in, scoring 7 goals in the first 2 games. I seem to remember when Ange first came in, I don't think he won in his first 3 competitive games, did he?
No,
I don't think there was any backlash or up in arms. And what is he saying, man? Up in arms about. I'm going to come on to the transfer stuff now, so just sit back there and just listen to this. What was I saying there? Ange didn't hear that this had a far worse start than this has been. So I think that's a fair point. What you make about Brendan. Obviously, Ange was in a total different predicament where he was rebuilding a poor side, and Brendan's came in. But Brendan's not had much luck with the injuries, like we've said. But not just that, as much as Ange was swashbuckling football, the tail end of the season before the Scottish Cup, we were in a horrible run of form. We were looking at record points tallies and then retaining the biggest dip possible. We were getting beat and drawn left, right and centre at the tail end of Ange's league campaign. So that run of form was happening at the end of last season too. Again, because of what preceded it, there's not anybody getting up in arms. So for me, again, I look at it, I always try and look at things. I always try and take a step back and look at things rather than the heat of the moment, just going off my nut. And if we're still in this run of form, see in 6 weeks' time, we could win every game. The players hit the ground running. We've got Angie's philosophy in full flow. We could have success in Europe, and nobody remembers this result. It's forgotten about. I think I totally agree with Ross. I think it's been a major overreaction to one loss. You've not got any God-given right to turn up to a game of football.
It's because it's the cup, though, isn't it? Probably.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I've seen a lot of people saying at least it was the cup, it wasn't the league. I would tend to think it's the opposite, that because you're losing that game, you can afford to lose games in the league and still win it. And like, I hate that word entitled, but from what I've seen, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, Stephen. I'm not talking about
I'm
you.
waiting.
Genuinely not talking about you. But for what I've seen from people online, I think they forget what we've done, and I've said it countless times in this podcast. There's a lot of focus on Europe, and rightly so. We should be doing much better in Europe. But what this football club has done over the past 7 years or whatever it is, winning countless trebles, is a phenomenal achievement. But because we've done it so frequently, it's like we're a victim of our own success, and people are expecting that now, rightly so. But you can't be up in arms after you lose one game. It just blows my mind, the reaction. And Ross is right. The media's got us playing us because we're getting linked with every player under the sun every second day or every 4 hours. Like, say, McTominay and KT at the start of the window, everybody gets excited. McTominay's on 90 grand a week. They've rejected a £30 million bid for West Ham. £30 million bid. And people are going, why are Celtic no chucking money like that? Because it's not plausible. It's just not going to happen. We're living in a modern day football. I sent you that the other day with Chelsea, and I know it's a loan signing to start off with, but there's an obligation. I think they've got to buy him. They've just signed that Newcastle have just signed that left back for Chelsea. He's 19 years old, and he's only made nine appearances, first team appearances, 9 appearances, and he's gone for a total of 35 million, a 19-year-old. Now, all we're hearing, or I'm reading every single day, is we need established Champions League players. Splash the cash. If the English Premier League are spending that amount of money on boys that haven't even got 10 appearances, first team appearances, how are we meant to compete with that? And how are we meant to find Champions League established quality? Now, in saying that, I think you can get quality out there for money. And I think that's what Celtic have done recently. Kyogo's.
Well, like, case in point, though, that Croatian keeper, like you said today.
Massive, aye. But again, if you sit back and look at it, like, we don't know what's happened there. We don't know if, again, the media's been all over it saying Celtic are speaking to him. We might not have even been speaking to him. If we didn't, I think we have agreed we've lost it there, because he's a magnificent keeper, obviously, and he's if he's gone for that money, that's we can afford that. But who's to say that we didn't speak to him and he went, I don't fancy you, I don't fancy Celtic. Fenerbahce are offering me 80 grand a week, I'd rather go there. We don't know. So I don't like criticising if that's the case. Nobody knows what's going on. And because we're fed, this is why, you know me, mate, in the chat, I'm like, going, fuck off. Unless it's Romano now. I used to slag Romano. Unless it's him. Don't believe it. Every 4 hours, it's like we're linked with somebody, and it's like, for God's sake. And that's why people are getting frustrated, because all they're hearing every other day is we're linked with him. And then all of a sudden 2 days later, that's absolute mute. It's not, you're not hearing a thing about it. And people go, why have we not signed him? Well, we might not even have been speaking to him. The squad might not have been speaking to him. Or alternatively, they could have spoke to him and he's not wanting to come, because every other league in Europe are firing out double, triple, 5 times what we can afford on wages on people, and it's just no plausible.
But is that an excuse culture, Willie?
No, it's a fact.
Are we making excuses saying that we can't compete with this level, so we won't try it anyway? Is that what we're saying?
No. That's what I'm saying. Maybe Celtic have tried.
Yeah.
Failed. But you can't, like, we literally cannot compete with that. There's no, like, we can't spend 35 million on a teenager hoping it works out. That's just not where we are. We've got this model, and I feel it's been working. We just need to learn to live with it. We are not going to be able to compete with all these people, all these teams, all these massive money cash cow. Tony said it in the chat the other night, and I totally agree. The Champions League's not what it used to be. It's all about the money, and it's just a big cash cow, and it's all about money. It's not about the best teams around the world anymore. We can't compete with the finances, and people need to just deal with that fact. Also, everybody talks like we've been really successful in the Champions League. What, have we qualified for the group stage 3 times since it started?
But a lot of the frustration as well. And I'm not cutting you off because I'm coming straight back to you. Is I've seen, I mean, if you're reading online as well, a lot's been made about the board, and even in the comments tonight, people are saying the board don't care about Europe because, like you said, we've done virtually nothing in Europe. So the fans are angry about that, and for me, I can see why. Because year on year, every manager who comes in, we need to make an imprint, we need to do this, we need to get better, we need to compete better. But then we're falling on the same excuses, or we get a group of dev. I know you can't control them variables, but do you know what I mean? People are calling out the board in that aspect.
Yeah, I totally understand that, but then that's when I say, like, we've got shackles on. There's only so much we can do. Like I said, you can't compete like Mbappe's and that are on crazy money every week. We cannot compete financially with that. And when we have been fairly successful in Europe, we never had world-beating squads. Strachan squads were amongst the weakest in my lifetime. Personally, I think we've had far stronger squads than that didn't do as well. So we can compete, but financially we cannot. It's just, and that's just the way of it. The model, this is the model. The league that we're in, we just need to accept it. And I understand it's hard to take, but if I sit back and look at it, that's how I feel about it. Obviously, I want to be successful, and this is what I get annoyed at as well, because then I make these points on here. I get some of the comments back as well, and I've done it online, and it's like, oh, well, we'll just no spend anything then. And I'm not saying that. I want us to spend money. Of course I do. I would love it if we could offer boys 100 grand a week and pay 40 million to get guys in. Of course I would. But I understand why we don't, because it's not plausible for us in the situation and the league we're in.
Yeah. No,
I don't.
100%.
I was just going to say, I don't buy into this. The board don't care about Europe, right? Because people say, oh, the board don't care about Europe. Look at what Rangers have done in Europe. How can we not do that, right? But the teams that we've assembled for not caring about Europe are actually better than Rangers teams that have got to European finals, Rangers teams that have ultimately got better results than us in Europe. But our teams have been better. So it's not like Celtic, the board, have not put money towards building squads that probably the squads that we have built down the years probably should have done better in Europe. But for me, sometimes comes down to styles. Rangers have had more pragmatic managers. Steven Gerrard, they weren't all out gung-ho attack. You never hear the Rangers supporters talking about their goalie, that wanting their goalie to be good with their feet. But we've had Rodgers, we've had Ange, we've got Rodgers again. And all the times it was this style of building for the back. And that style for me, with our quality player, is high risk. And it's even more high risk in Europe. And I think that is a lot to do with why we haven't got the same sort of results as Rangers in Europe. And then you look at us having a Neil Lennon. He's that, well, don't want to be disrespectful, but he's that sort of levelly manager down for a Postecoglou or a Rodgers. Similar to Gerrard, he's down a level for that. But Lennon's managed to get bigger results than they guys in Europe because he doesn't play that, my goalie needs to be brilliant with the ball at his feet, we need to build for the back. So I don't buy into this, that the board don't care about Europe. I think they've invested in the squad to win the league. They've been the best team in the country. That should then take you on to that level in Europe. Rangers are doing it, having not been the best team in the country, obviously out with last season when they were the worst team in the Champions League. But you sort of get the gist of what I'm saying. I just think it sometimes boils down to style, and I don't think the way Celtic's style has been the last 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, it's no set up for Europe. You look at Neil Lennon in his second spell, obviously get big results in his first spell. Again, not playing that, building out for the back. He goes and wins a Europa League group with 2 games to spare, wins in bloody Rome, beats Lazio at home. I think sometimes it just boils down to the style. I don't think that I don't subscribe to the fact that the Celtic board don't care about Europe, but they're working within a sort of parameter in terms of budget. And listen, I'm the same as everybody else. I would like us to push the boat out that wee bit further, but it still doesn't guarantee you success, especially with the style we're playing. But what I will say is, I would much rather watch Celtic week in, week out playing the style of football that they have been than watch Rangers sort of push and run, get it out wide, punt it into the box and hope for the best with your 2 fullbacks who, by the way, have got really good delivery, but it's not as nice on the eye as Celtic, and we're the ones winning titles and cups and all the rest of it.
So do you purely think it's down to tactics?
I think it's partly to do with it. I don't think it's entirely down to that. I think that is a big reason. I think I've sort of outlined fair points as to why it could be.
You need luck as well. Need a bit
of course you do. Rangers carried a lot of luck in that Europe. And by the way, you make your own luck. Rangers done well to get to that European final. Take nothing away from them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, Celtic, absolutely. They should be doing better. But I think, as I've said, it's coming down to a big part to do with style. I don't think they don't care about Europe, though. I don't buy into that.
I agree. By the way, see, everybody always talks about us wanting to be more successful in Europe. Stephen, what does success in Europe look like for you, for us?
Success in Europe for me is at least being in a European competition after Christmas, preferably Champions League, but secondary be Europa League. And if we fall in the Europa League, I do want to kind of challenge in that and put a good fist up. But before we come on to, we'll keep it on the European side actually. And Frank Brennan has kind of said 17 million or slightly more spent on 7 bargain basement punts, and not one of them a Rodgers sign. And I come and do, Willie. We'll keep it to the players who come in because we're going to touch about Palma and the effects he could have on the squad later on in the podcast. Now, we look at Thiago Home, we look at Naraki, we look at Yang, Kwan, all the players who come into the club. Can you, hand on heart, say they've all been a Rodgers signing? We know Rodgers had a say in at least 4 of them because they were scouted, like Tilio, Kwan, the likes of these guys, but are you more confident that Naraki and Lagerbielke would have been his kind of, we're going for them?
I think they would have been similar to the rest. I think there's a scout. I think he said it himself. There's a scouting system in place, but he's got final say on what he's looking for and what he wants. I think that his comment was taken far was taken far too out of context about he just coaches the players. If you watch the whole interview, that's not what he was saying.
Was that the one when they said he coaches the players who the club provide him?
But if you watch the whole interview, it's not. It's like they've just taken that still, obviously, and he's got. I do totally believe he's got the final say. I don't think he would have took the job otherwise. But I don't believe every one of Angie's signings he went out and handpicked himself. I think there is a number of them that he said, "I want you to look at this person, this person, this person." But I don't. I think it's a collective between the recruitment team. I think there was probably a number of signings that we had in Angie's term that were brought to him by the scouting team, and then he had a say. So I don't think it's changed in that regard. What I would say in his time, the likes of Kyogos and all the rest of it, obviously he's the one that's pushed for them. But I would suggest that the recruitment teams went out and done their work on them before bringing them in as well. It's not just his decision. So I do think that I don't think Rodgers would have taken the job. I mean, that's the reason he left in the first place. I don't agree with Frank Brennan, what he was saying about, I don't know, it's about them being B team players or whatever.
They were a punt.
We'll see it. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. We'll see what these players are like, and I'll hold my comment till then because I think we've got a couple of gems. I think Home looks a player. I think Naroki's done great since he's came in. Yang obviously is a bag of tricks playing that Glasgow Celtic way, the tricky winger with a bit of flair. I think he could be possibly a good player for us. And we've still got, everybody forgets about Tilio. I think he could be magic for us as well, and he's still to come back. So I don't think, this is what I get frustrated about. Everybody's talking about how we are weaker, and I understand that from the point of 2 big players for us last season, and Jota and Carl Starfelt are away, but that's 2 players from a nucleus of a treble-winning squad. That's why it frustrates me about that Kilmarnock game, where there he's shouting at me now too.
No, Rodgers never ever said he had a final say, but only that he coaches and develops players.
He needs to watch it back because he did. He said, "I still play a part in it."
Yeah. Obviously, there's certain people that just pick out certain points.
Difference of opinions, isn't it?
But that's what I'm saying. Instead of because when he first said that, I'm not going to lie, I got a bit. When he said that, I'll just coach or whatever it was, I was like, "Oh, fucking wait a minute here." But then when I sat back and watched it as a whole, I understood what he was trying to say. But people don't do that. The media, obviously, and people read. They just take that and make that the headline, which is fair enough. That's how you want to go about it. But that's not what I heard. So I can't even mind what I was saying there. So that's what annoys me about this Kilmarnock result as well. This squad's now not good enough. This current squad that we've got now. This is a treble winning squad, minus Jota and Starfelt. Now, all these players aren't good enough, but we were raving about them 3 or 4 months ago. And that's what I get frustrated about. I mean, fans are fickle. Myself included, there's times I get frustrated. And your reaction is a certain way, but and Taylor and Calmack and all the rest of them, they've not hit the ground running this season. Nowhere near it. But we've still managed to get 2 results out of 3 when we're nowhere near our best. And these players were absolutely critical for us last season. And then all of a sudden, these guys aren't good enough. That's football doesn't. It didn't just turn shite overnight. And I think Rodgers made a statement yesterday about how he thinks the squad is stronger in depth, and I would agree with that with the guys we've brought in. I do agree we need more. Of course we do. We can always improve. The team that played last season under Ange could improve. We can always improve. So I'll be looking at that. But I'm definitely not as frustrated as many others about this transfer window, because I know we've still got more than the nucleus of a treble winning squad, by the way. The one that won the treble last year, now deemed not good enough.
See, again, you can see how divisive even bringing up like what happened this week can be. Difference of opinions in the comments is what we all love to see. And the Frank Brennan comment there, Ross, that I think Willie covered brilliantly in terms of what he said. But again, Brian Mourier came in and said it seems like to him, he's not kind of held accountable when it comes to transfers or team selection. And there's been a few comments by Cal McGregor that's kind of spiked a bit of interest, saying the team has to stick together and stuff like that, apparently because he said it twice in one interview. It's ringing alarm bells in people's heads. But, I mean, if you look at it, and we're merging it with different chat here, like Europe, and it's great. And the broader picture and landscape of things, like Willie says, don't necessarily agree with it all, to be honest. I think with, like, in terms of Yang and stuff like that, but still the see his best and see what he's going to do. Needs to run the team for that. And I do believe, Willie, to be fair, Home looks a cracking player. We've talked about that before, and the Rocky got injured, which is unfortunate. But again, it's like the fire's out. Do you know what I mean? He's come back to this situation, and it's going to happen every time that we pick up a bad result. And we mentioned Europe, and you've asked me what success is, and we're going to obviously do our live kind of draw podcast when all that's happening. We'll have fun with that like we did last year. But can you see this team with this squad doing anything in Europe, Ross?
Well, it's difficult because the start of the campaign, we're going to be without Navroke, we're going to be without Carter Vickers. I think possibly that might be all we'll be without, unless we pick up more injuries in between now and then, which I sincerely hope we don't. I know. Sincerely hope we don't. But listen, we're going to do business between now and the end of the window. Whatever business we do or don't do, Celtic's going to go into that Champions League, and whoever they draw, they're going to find it difficult. It's going to be difficult games, hard games, because it's the top level of European football. We could have went out and signed 5 7 to 10 million pound players in this window, went into the Champions League, drew PSG and Bayern Munich, and get popped out. Still got absolutely hammered quite easily. So, for me, people say you've got to speculate to accumulate and stuff like that. Aye, we have, but you've got to do it within reason. You've got to. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to talk like a bloody accountant or anything like that, because I'm far from that. Do you know what I mean? But I'm a football fan first and foremost, and I want Celtic to do the best they can. But I also understand that my perception of the best they can, or the best they can be, might not be realistic, because I'm a fan. Mm-hmm. I'm not privy to what's going on in the boardroom. Listen, I think we probably could and should maybe be spending a wee bit more, but again, I don't know why they aren't, or I have no idea what the reasons are, but there'll be reasons. I don't think it's just biscuit tin mentality. They don't give a fuck about Europe. They're just happy getting cash and checks, putting money in the bank. It's not as simple as that. Folk who hate the board or are up in arms with the board, just do that.
I hate the board.
Listen, I'm no an absolute lover of the board. You could speak to every football fan, every team in the whole world, and a lot of them would hate their board, because they're a football fan's idea of where they want their club to be is the very, very top. It's winning trophy after trophy, but you're competing with other good teams. You've not got a divine right to just go and listen, I'm not saying the Celtic fans are wanting us to go and win the European Cup or anything like that. It's not going to happen, but I don't know. Celtic are playing in Scotland. They're a big fish in a wee pond. Listen, I don't know. I would like Celtic to spend bigger money, but my point is, sorry, Stephen.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to let you continue. I'm saying what I'm saying here is like you can see the comments as well, Willie. There's difference of opinion of everybody going around this chat, and it's great to see. But in regards to what Brian Moore you're saying there, Ross, you continue. That's all I wanted to say there because everyone's getting involved.
No, I would love Celtic to spend that money, right? But I heard you. I'm not picking you up here, Stephen. I'm just using this as an example, right? You said a few weeks back, I think it was Genk had done quite well in the Champions League last season. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You said to me, why can't Celtic go out and spend £10 million on? Now I know it was just like an example. You don't know the guy's name or that. How can they not go out and spend £10 million on the Genk centre midfielder? Well, you could have spent that £10 million on the Genk centre midfielder before he had a really good Champions League campaign last year. But he's not going to cost you £10 million off a good Champions League campaign. He's going to cost you more for Celtic to get him. And then the wages on top of it. I mean, you're talking about a £10 million player, right? Who was it? Somebody just... was it Nottingham Forest? Nottingham Forest just signed a World Cup winner, Meriel or something like that, Argentinian defender, Montiel. Just signed him for £10 million, right? Celtic can afford that £10 million. Maybe Celtic, I'm not saying Celtic did, but just for talking sake, maybe Celtic looked at him, tried to get him. They can only offer him a certain amount of money on wages.
Bang on.
And then Nottingham Forest come in and spend the same amount of money on him. Celtic maybe offer 40 grand, which is high-end money in terms of wages for Celtic. Nottingham Forest probably would just go, well, we'll give you 90 grand. When it comes to a £10 million player, it's okay saying, right, we want to get that guy. Absolutely, I would love to get him. But I just think he's going to have more options than just Celtic, and teams out with Scotland are able to offer more money than what Celtic are. I think it was in the group chat during the week I'd made the point that people were on about Celtic maybe smashing their transfer record this summer, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Celtic could, in terms of a fee for a player, they could afford to smash it. But then you go into the sort of realms of wages. And you look at the players Celtic have signed in the last 20 years, right? They signed Dodson Edward, right? They broke their transfer record to sign him. But he was a 19-year-old, untried player that came in at Celtic on loan. They took him on loan, hoping that he would be good, but we had Dembele at the time. Dembele left, he came into his own, and he proved himself at Celtic. Then we decided to pay the money for him. Before that, the last sort of good size fee we spent was on like Hartson, Lennon, Sutton, right? But then another example is we brought Jota and Carter Vickers in on loan, and out with Edward, we then put our biggest outlay in they two players last summer, similar money to what we put out on Hartson and Sutton and stuff like that. But we brought them in on loan, and they proved themselves. If they hadn't done well on loan, we wouldn't have paid the money. Celtic wouldn't have went and paid Benfica $6 million straight off the bat, or 6.8 million, whatever it was, straight off the bat, because he never really had a lot of first team experience. Celtic are not going to spend that money on these guys, and they're not going to get, for me, and I know you need to be more ambitious, but there needs to be an element of realism as well. I just don't think that Celtic are going to go out and buy a 26-year-old player for £10 million and get him on our sort of wage structure. We would have to smash that. and then it causes a bit of disharmony in the squad. And I know that people have said Cal McGregor's money's been put up and stuff like that. I don't know for sure, but my point was that we don't go out and spend that money on proven players. We bring players in and loan, like a Jota, like a Carter Vickers, like an Edward. If they prove themselves and they're going to be a really, really good player, and that's the money you have to pay, Celtic will pay it. But they won't pay it straight off the bat. It's too much of a risk.
Yeah. I mean, again, as I said, the divisiveness in the chat, people are agreeing, disagreeing. Frank Brennan certainly doesn't agree with what we're saying, and that's fair enough. It's all about debate. And to be fair to you, Frank,
there's a way going about it.
Aye. I know.
Some of the comments, by the way, Frank, are a bit. See, to be fair, like the world, what you're saying isn't a fact. That's your opinion, and we've got our opinions. There's no need to be. And by the way, your comment about imagine if Martin O'Neill or Strachan said, "I only play a part in transfers." Back then, I don't know if you're living in 2004, but football's a total different entity now. Didn't have directors of football and all that sort of stuff back then. They had full control. Football's a totally different game nowadays. So you can't compare that with now. Also, we talk about Sutton came in for this price, so and so came in for this price. We've no spent that now, and it's however many years later. Well, back then there was TV money. We had money. We were a big attraction. We could afford the same amount of wages as what was getting elsewhere. That's not what's happening now.
Aye, because we've went slowly like that, and the other leagues have went like that.
And when you see the likes of the Norwegian league, Swiss league getting paid 50-60 million £, and we're scraping around for, do you know what I mean, 23 million £. I think the current TV deal is, and that's gone up to 29 and 29, funny enough. So again, we've undervalued our product, and Neil Doncaster and Maxwell, all these guys, they've got to be held accountable for that. Lonergan comes in, we can do better than what this board are doing. I know that we are selling ourselves short if we're trying to move on to another level, as Brendan says. Again, I probably verge on a different opinion. I do verge on a different opinion than William Ross. I believe firmly that we should be spending more money. I believe we have it. And yeah, I do believe in some essence the board is selling the fans out. I mean, season ticket records, Japan tours, we could go through it all. We've raked in the money, and for some reason, and I'm hoping it's for the last couple of days, it's been sitting in the account, gathering a bit of interest. And but like,
because you said, sorry mate, I didn't want to interrupt, but what you said there is a totally different opinion because you think we should be spending the money. I think we should be spending money too. I've never once said that. What I'm saying is, I understand why we're not, because of the market we're in. I think we should be spending money, but I totally understand why we're not. And that's my point. I'm not saying we shouldn't be. Everybody, like the people in the chat, obviously Frank thinks that as well. Night Frank. He says he's off now, so I'm not saying we shouldn't spend money. I would love for us to spend money. No bother, mate. I think the same about yourself.
Demented Bairns.
I'm a grown man, Frank.
Grown man.
He's a character.
Andy's acting like a Bairn, it's Frank.
Of course, I want us to spend money. I'm not saying I want to. I'm hoping that before the window shuts next week, we spend a bit of cash and we can get some real quality in. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not arguing against that.
No, I 100% agree.
I'm the same as that
because
it's not black and white.
It's not as easy as going out and picking out. Look at that quality player when there's, like I said, there's teenagers with a handful of appearances. Teenagers gone for 40 million. I can understand why we can't compete with that. I'm not saying I don't want us to spend money, but I understand why we can't compete. And
I do want to.
Everybody, obviously, Celtic's the best club in the world, but we're just not the same attraction that we were however many years ago.
That's the reality. That's the reality.
The league we're in, and I see if we are doing well in Europe, we're punching. And when we have done in the past, this is what I'm talking about as well. That's why I asked you about what you feel like success is in Europe, because everybody's like, we need to go back to the success we've had in Europe. We've only ever qualified through the group stages 3 times.
I know.
So it's
I think we need to make Celtic Park a bit more of a fortress again. I think, and in terms of that, I think that's what people are sort of meaning in that. Like, I totally take your point that we have only qualified out the group 3 times, but we've been stronger at home and we've given it a better account. We need to win. It's not going to be in the Champions League, but we need to win a knockout tie sooner or later, because there's teams that we should have beat in the last 15 years in knockout ties. We are coming up short on that, but I don't think it's because, I'll say it again, I don't think it's because the board don't care or don't want to invest in it. Listen, I know when we were when we had to qualify for the Champions League, that we left it late. But again, people were up in arms then. I understood why we did. I wanted us to go out and spend money, but I understood why we were leaving it late, because it's not like we aren't in a league where we're getting copious amounts of money. We're in a position to just go, right, fuck it, we'll just spend that money, and then if we get there, great. If we don't get there, you've took the gamble, it's not paid off. If you keep doing that year on year on year, it'll catch up with you. Look at Rangers. And listen, they've went out and spent quite a bit of money, and they might well get through a Champions League qualifier again, and people can counter what I'm saying here and say, well, look at Rangers, they've spent the money there well in advance of their qualifiers. But Rangers had a rebuild this time. They had to spend the money. They lost a lot of guys for nothing. They've had to just go out and take a gamble because they had nothing. They had nothing. A big nucleus of a team going. But I don't even know what my fucking point is anymore.
But see if I can say
comment there as well. Sorry, Ian McIntosh. You made a great point, right? And I totally agree. With what you said, Frank balances the chat. You need people like him. I totally agree. Like Stephen disagrees with what I said, but he's not throwing insults at me, and I'm not coming on here to get insulted, and that's what I get. That's what I'm
exactly.
Getting. Totally. Like I said, I'm not in life. People have opinions, and that's fair enough. I'm more than happy to take your opinion on, but I'm allowed to disagree with it. And you that's life. I'm just not having thrown insults, to be honest with you.
That was the point.
Look on with some of the insults he's actually thrown at me tonight.
That was the point that I was going to raise there. Like, and I've been tempted to remove that, but again, we're all in here debating, and I know people can get heated, but let's keep it. And don't be insulting people. Don't be doing stuff like that, because we're all allowed to disagree with each other. We're on here. We're debating the club we all love, the Celtic Football Club, and people are right to their opinion. But again, no insults, and I'll be keeping an eye on that. And I think this is fair on everybody, isn't it? Really, to be honest. Absolutely. But in regards to, I mean, to kind of round off that chat there, I agree with some of the points he's made, and I know you've never said you don't want to spend money. That's 100%. But again, I'm off the cuff. I'd be up in that boardroom just going like that. But we'll come on to the transfer side of things. We'll come on to the transfer side of things, Ross. And Rodgers has confirmed now, well, in his latest press conference, we need at least 4 new faces. Luis Palma from a Greek club who seems to have the same numbers as Dada did, probably in a better competitive league, which is quite good in terms of that. I mean, left-sided attacker coming in. While this has happened, again, he's confirmed the Rockies out for 2 months, and it's gone up to 5 players, which would be looking for an experienced centre half. But leaving the other 3 positions out there, where do we need to strengthen, and what would you like to see come in?
I would like to see another striker come in. I'm not saying to challenge Kyogo, because he's far and away one of our best players. He's a long way ahead of O at the minute, but we need another option. For me, I think Maeda does all right, but I think we need another out-and-out sort of striker option, a more physical guy, and I know O brings that, but I feel we need that. I would like to see another centre midfielder, but I doubt, if we keep a hold of Hatate, I doubt we'll bring a centre midfielder in, because I think we've got a lot of options in there. I'm loath to say it, but I'm looking at that left back position. Greg Taylor is out of form, but I said that when Ange left and Rodgers was due to come in, I said I worried that Greg Taylor could adjust to Rodgers' style and play that sort of role. I I think if we can get better than Greg Taylor, we can absolutely get better than Bernabei. But if we can get
leave Bernabei, come on, leave Bernabei alone, right? Let me have some.
I think we need. I think we could look at that. Obviously, we need to look at the centre half option. For me, as well, I think people have said that Rodgers is telling Joe Hart to go long, right? And we're not playing it as short now. That playing it long has never been Rodgers' style. I think he's allowing Hart. He's not instructing him to, but he's allowing Hart to go long now because he knows he isn't great with his feet. I've been a sort of not an advocate of Hart, but I've defended him because I think he has been. I think everybody can agree he's been a good goalie for Celtic. If we can get better, I've always said, go and do it. It's not at the emergency stage when we brought Joe Hart in, we needed to bring somebody in. It's not at that stage for me. But I looked at that Kilmarnock game on Sunday, and it sort of sealed the deal for me that I feel like we do need to go and get a keeper. As I'll say again, if we can't get one in this window, I'm quite happy to go with Hart. But I would rather get a new keeper. And for me, it was because we weren't playing well, but then in the start of the second half, we came out and we were knocking the ball about a wee bit better, and we were starting to get a foothold in the game. Ball went back to Joe Hart. He played a really poor pass, and it was similar to the game at Ibrox last season. It put the 2-2 game. We were up 1-0 at the time in that game. He played a really poor pass. Kilmarnock jumped on it, put air in their lungs, and for then on in, they gained confidence off it, and Celtic lost control of what they were starting to get. For me, that coupled with the fact that Rodgers is allowing them to go long. Rodgers are allowing Hart to go long now because he knows he isn't good enough with his feet. He's not going to turn around and say that he doesn't want Joe Hart as his goalie. But I think Rodgers will be actively out there looking for a new keeper. He done the same with Craig Gordon, and he got it wrong at that time. And he held his hand. Well, he didn't hold his hands up, but he made the change because he knew he'd got it wrong, and he went with Gordon, and that was fine. I think he'll try and do the same with Joe Hart because I think, for me, I think Gordon's a better goalie than Joe Hart. But I think similar with the feet, I think that's a big thing for like say Ange and Rodgers. I would be looking at a new goalie if we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it as well, Willie. Again, you go through the possessions. Palmer's coming in. We know he's after a experienced centre half. People are saying Johnny Evans, but I think he has like a short-term deal with Manchester United at the moment, so I don't know where that kind of leaves us. Corvo, you're a man to my own heart. Majowski or Duke, I think they're both quality strikers. And Willie, please don't say what I know you're going to say. First team quality players, right? I just like them. I think they're good. They had a good game. They had a good game last night. I watched the Aberdeen and Hacken game. It came down from 2-0 down, and they could have won the game, to be honest. And it's good to see other Scottish clubs do well in Europe. So long may that continue. Apart from the other mob, but I mean, you look at it. Goalkeeping position, we lost the goalkeeper we all wanted. Livakovic. He went to Fenerbahce for like €6.5 million or something, plus add-ons. Something we could have probably done. Left back, Taylor's been really indifferent. Doesn't look like he has the confidence that he once did. Centre midfield's a concern of mine, Willie. The physicality, and I know people hate me saying that, but I think Brian Warrior's right. Cal McGregor can't play that defensive midfield role by himself, especially in European football. It was a totally different type of role under Ange Postecoglou, where he was like the quarterback. He was liking the play. He was joining the attacks, but he's kind of staying back a lot now. Left wing, if Palmer comes in, I'll be happy because we've got Yang and Nevada. I think that will be good depth there. And a striker. I think we desperately need a striker to come in because if Kyogo gets injured at this moment with nobody.
Yeah, aye. For me, I think you asked the question the other night in our group chat about who we would sign, and I think I said a keeper. I would like a keeper in and a striker. I think they need to be the priorities. I take on, we kind of had a wee bit of a debate the other night about the whole midfield scenario and how we feel we're a bit lightweight, and I do understand it. And I kind of came back and said, but you make a great point there, Stephen. I kind of came back and said, well, we never had a tough tackling, hardy bastard midfielder the last 2 or 3 years, and nobody's batted an eyelid. But it's a totally different style, and I do think Rodgers likes that kind of sitting sort of insurance.
Scott Brown, Brown,
and he had that. I think when he was at Liverpool, he kind of had Gerrard sitting in there. So I do think he likes a bit of insurance in there, and that's no Calmac.
No,
it's definitely not. So I do see that, but at the same time as saying that, I do like that midfield three. And I mean, we have got players there. I think Awata's a decent player, but he's not getting playing in that midfield three. We've obviously signed Big Quan, and he's not really hit the ground running at all either.
Far from it.
But in the same token, I'm and the whole Taylor debate, and obviously everybody that's tuned in regular, absolutely, Michael. Yeah, Alistair.
This is what I said, Jed. Again, that's what I said to these guys in the chat as well. Two midfielders they have. No, 12 million. You know what I mean. But it goes back to what you said earlier, Willie. Like, there's players out there. I think that's quality.
Ed's an unofficial Endless Celts member. I love him to bits. But I was not. I said this. I had this debate with Stephen, and I was like, I wasn't impressed by PSV. The big what is Sangare?
Yeah.
He looked decent, but I wasn't like blown away. And at the same time, we're talking about that. Oh, they got they two for 12 million or whatever. But it's the exact same model Celtic have been using for it. But that's what everybody's saying we shouldn't do. We should be going and splashing the cash. These are guys that have come from the abyss, from nowhere. I think I looked at it and they were like Marseille and Herenveen. If Celtic signed two players for 12 million for Herenveen and Marseille, the guys would still be shouting and raving about we need to spend money on top quality players. These are still guys who are unknown. It's the exact same model Celtic have been using for the past however many years. So for me, that
and PSV didn't. Sorry, Willie, but PSV didn't qualify for the Champions League. Celtic signed Hatate and Matt O'Reilly. Hatate was 2 million. Matt O'Reilly was $1 million or something like that.
$1.5 million or something.
They won the league, got to the Champions League.
It's the exact same model.
So they're actually ahead of PSV.
Well, PSV could qualify for the Champions League, and people will point to the fact that the Dutch league is a stronger competition than the Scottish league.
They also might go out to a team who we probably perceive as lesser than us. Rangers.
Fair point.
I just think that I understand what you're saying, and I think it's probably you were getting at the type of player, because that Sangare was a bit of a big put it about throwing people about, physical. Exactly what Jed's saying there. So I do understand that. But for the angle that it was like, well, they've only got them for 12 million. I'm like, well, that's the same model we're using, and this again. The whole focus on a transfer fee, like I said, Kyogo is unbelievable. What a signing he's been for us. I couldn't give a flying fuck if we paid 1 million for him or 25 million for him. The transfer fee is insignificant for me. I don't care. There's this big focus on we need to spend money. We need to spend money on a £7 or £8 million player. I couldn't give a fuck what he costs. I just want quality. And that's what Kyogo is. So it doesn't matter if he's worth 1 million or 20 million. He's a quality player. His fee is insignificant to me. Just like Henrik Larsson's was. He came in for 650k and look what he achieved at the club. A fee doesn't guarantee you. You put 5 million in a Yeti, 5 million on Barkas or whatever it was. It doesn't guarantee you. There's your 10, there's your 12 million for PSV on a Yeti and Barkas. So it doesn't just automatically work out. And they were successful where they were in their leagues. So it proves the point. It's all about, he is a beautiful human being. Now I forget I've done a Ross, I forget my point.
Well, do you know what else, by the way? I've picked up a lot of folks saying we haven't actually replaced Jota yet. We haven't replaced them like for like. But see the guys we have signed. We've signed Yang, we've signed Telio. I'm thinking of wingers that we've signed. They're the two that come to mind. I don't think we've signed any other wingers. But they guys are coming. We've paid. We took Jota on loan to begin with. Obviously, it cost us more a season down the line, and he was brilliant for us. But they guys have come in with more first team experience than Jota did. So who's to say that they can't come in and have a similar impact?
Can I tie that up, Ross? I'll come straight back to you with the comments that Rodgers made recently about the Celtic squad being weaker than it was last season, weaker than it was last season. He said it's the reality. He's not going to beat around the bush when he's talking about the bush, which I found was quite funny. And he said that. So, I mean, in essence, again, I'm not saying I was right, by the way, before you say anything. So I'm not saying that. But I think a lot of people have came to that conclusion that we look a wee bit more depleted and weaker than we did last season. And yeah, you point to the fact that we've brought in Yang and Tilio and Starfeld's there for bringing in Naraki and Lagerbilka and Bhoys there for bringing in Home. But again, they're still the unknown quantities, and I totally get where people's coming from in this aspect. So if the manager's saying we're weaker, although Willie did say they're stronger in depth, but quality of first team squad, which he's probably talking about, does that not send a wee bit of alarm bells down you when we're coming into these vital games in the next 4 to 5 weeks that we could be, in his words, weaker than we were last season?
Well, no for me, because I read it that he was saying that if he'd just said we lost Starfelt, we lost Jota, we lost Moy, so we're weaker, even though the players we've brought in. But he also caveated it with the fact that we've lost CCV through injury, Hatate, Navroke. So he put the injuries in amongst that. I think that the way I read it, that he was saying we are stronger in depth, but right at this moment in time, before the window closes, we are weaker because we've lost 8 players, but we've also lost these guys through injury. So currently, the team that finished last season and won the treble are weaker right now, but we still have time in this window. And if we sign 3 or 4 players, they can come in. That'll mean we've signed. If we sign 4 players, I think we've signed 10 in the window. Now, I concede that these players, you don't know how they're going to be, but for the most part, that's what Celtic signed. I can't remember the last time Celtic signed a player and you went, that guy, he's going to go straight into the team.
Longberg.
We know everything about him. Do you know what I mean? So it's always been the way. I just read it that in this moment in time, the injuries coupled with the guys we've lost, we are weaker right now, but that doesn't mean to say we can't get stronger in this next week. Listen, I'm not a lover of us leaving it to the last week to bring in 4 players that you want to really make an impact in that first 11. It's not how you want to do it. I totally concede that. It isn't. But it's where we are. It's the reality of it. I think had Ange still been here, we wouldn't be doing this now, because Ange had plans in place. He was assessing that team with the games that we had sort of a free hit at because the league was won. He was assessing it, and he would have known in his head what he needed. Rodgers has come in, clean slate. He has to assess the squad. He needs time to do that. He's had time to do that now, and I think I was going to say I would like to have seen him bringing more in, but since assessing the squad, you'd have to say he's brought in 2 centre halves, and he's been very unlucky to lose Carter Vickers. He's had to put Lagerbielke in there. He's lost Welsh, but
that's a fair point, by the way, Ross. See what you're saying about that. So if we're thinking Ange would still be in charge at this point, you think we would have done more by now? We would have had the players that he wanted in, and does that then point to the fact that Rodgers does have a say then, and he's said, "I don't fancy him," or "I don't fancy him."
There's no way that a manager, in my head, there's no way in God's green earth that a manager can come into a team and the first day go, I've been watching you on the telly for the last year, so he's not good enough, he's not good enough, he's not good enough. That would be unprofessional. It'd be unfair. You would lose the dressing room straight away with guys who have built up relationships with each other in terms of the playing squad. Well, he's just got rid of my mate. He's not even seen him playing in training. He's watched him on the telly. What the fuck's all that about? You've just not got to do that. You need to give yourself a bit of leeway. Find out who is going to be good enough to play your style. He's still finding that out, but I think he's assessed the squad and he knows who he wants to keep in around the squad and who he wants to go.
See, that's what.
Totally
But there's people out there saying that Rodgers hasn't got a say in the transfers. If that's the case, your point, which I agree with, if that was the case, then surely all Angie's signings would be in the door now, ready to go.
Can I want to say something here. See, in regards to what we're talking about, obviously the comments, Willie and Ross kind of countered that, saying he's talking about injuries and stuff. But the previous interview done after the Kilmarnock game, he said he wants quality in, and then a week later he's saying we're weaker. There's a link somewhere there. And I know we're depleted because of injuries and we're depleted because we lost key players, but he definitely knows what he's saying, I think, in these interviews. Maybe it's a dig at the powers that be. Postecoglou done it, remember? He's not being remember he said them comments about not being forceful enough with the board, and then after that it was like everything was happening, transfers were happening. Maybe there's a link, I don't know, but he's saying quality. Next week later he's saying we're weaker.
Yeah, but again, you posted that link and you take what you want, what you see from it, and the headline was "We are weaker," but he did say we are weaker, but then went on to talk about Jota and Starfelt going, and he said they were big first team players, we've lost them, but he also said then he also went on to the injuries. So I was like, well, that as a consensus, missing Jota and Starfelt that's gone, plus Hatate, CCV, all the rest of them, then we're clearly weaker. And people out there say we're weaker, and I understand that. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't necessarily agree with it either. I've not seen enough of the players that we've got at this moment in time to make an assumption on that. Yang, like we've been talking about all night, when Jota came in, nobody heard him. When Kyogo came in, nobody heard him. When Hatate came in, nobody heard him. All of a sudden, we have to buy household names that everybody's heard of because they play Football Manager every night.
But you just said there as Rodgers come in, looked at Postecoglou's plans and said he doesn't fancy this guy, he doesn't fancy that guy.
No, that's not what I've said. To Ross's point was, because Ross said if Andrew's in, he would have had all these guys in that he wanted. My point was, I wasn't disagreeing. Well, my point was, people out there are saying that Rodgers hasn't got a say. So if that's the case, everybody Ange wanted in would be in by now. So does that tell you that Rodgers does have a say and he says, I don't fancy him or that? I was asking a question. That wasn't
okay.
I was like,
right, okay.
If Andrew's
I think some of the... Sorry, Wally.
No, on you go.
I was just going to say, I think some of the players that... I wouldn't say Ange picked. I would say it's that sort of model where they've maybe brought these guys to Ange, but before he could say yay or nay to Home, Yang, guys like that, they've took them to Ange maybe, and he's no, because he's left, he's no had the say on them, or he has, and said he wanted them, but then he's left. But then the board have kept day players in the pipeline and took them to Rodgers, and then Rodgers has done what Ange has done and said aye or no. There might have been a number of other players that they've gave to Rodgers and Rodgers has said no to, but he said aye to these guys. But aye, I'll go back to it. Ange Postecoglou would have been, if he'd have still been here, we'd have probably been a month ahead of ourselves in terms of the business we were doing in the transfer window, because all the plans were in place. That's how Ange worked. That's how the board worked. We praised him for it. But Rodgers, for me, is operating a month behind, coupled with the copious amount of injuries that we've suffered. I just think he's operating so far behind, and he's probably going to have to get an emergency defender in if he doesn't trust the Scales or that. I think this window, as I say, it's been that sort of come in, assess what he's needing. Now, we've all alluded to the fact that Rodgers is going to play a different style for Ange. Somebody said in the comments there that we don't need all these players to play the Rodgers style because a lot of them were brought in specifically for the Ange style. I agree with that. But I don't think it's a rebuild, but I think Rodgers will assemble players to suit his style now. And that isn't going to be done in this window. It'll be similar to Ange, but it'll take 2 or 3 windows. But Ange was rebuilding. Rodgers is adding to what we've already got. And some of what we've already got will go. I'm not saying I want Maeda to go, but will he suit Rodgers' style down the line? Maybe not, right? So he'll maybe get rid of him and he'll bring in somebody who he wants. But it's not going to be done in one window. Brendan Rodgers is going to have to do that over 2 or 3 windows. He needs time. Brendan Rodgers is a quality manager, and I fully believe he'll get it right. It's not going perfect right now, but he's here for 3 years. Hopefully he stays for 3 years. And if he is here for 3 years, I fully believe that he'll get the players in that he wants in time, and they'll play the style that Brendan Rodgers wants to play, and it'll be a successful style of football.
Great point. I mean, Ange, like everybody says, Ange got everybody in early doors, which is fair enough. But Ross is bang on. That was after a couple of windows. Like, I mean, when he first came in, remember the squad? It was obviously he never won a game in the first 3 games. But the first 11 he was putting it was nowhere near the first 11 he was putting it in the January. So he didn't get it done early doors then because, as Ross said, he's coming in, he's assessing the squad first. That doesn't happen overnight. It takes months and months. And Rodgers has been in the job 12 weeks, whatever, 16 weeks. And all of a sudden it's the end of the world with some fans because we've lost one game of football.
This is the aftermath of losing the game, isn't it? Like we spoke about earlier in the podcast. And just quickly to round off the transfer and the weaker chat, Ross, there was a linked rumour last night, outgoing Matt O'Reilly, Bologna from Serie A. I think Lewis Ferguson plays for them. Apparently they've had a bid turned down from Celtic for him. I don't think we can afford that O'Reilly go, in my opinion. I think he's one of the players for me who started this season quite well. He's developed in this different position where he's even mentioned the fact that Rodgers has him facing the game more, making the late runs into the box, and he's getting 2 goals in his first 2 games. So I don't want him going. And if he goes, where does that leave us again?
For me, I don't think Celtic will let Matt O'Reilly go. I don't think Matt O'Reilly will leave Celtic to go to Bologna. I don't see why he would do that. He's got Champions League football coming up. He's every interview that he's given so far, he looks like he's delighted to be playing under Rodgers. People have even said that he's been having a dig at Ange, and before the Kilmarnock game, it was, he's having a dig at Ange. He's absolutely loving playing under Rodgers.
They're trying to create drama.
Aye, but listen, Matt O'Reilly's a really good player. Clubs will be interested in him. Clubs will make bids for Matt O'Reilly when transfer windows are open. Celtic won't let him go in this window. Not for me. They shouldn't, they can't, and they won't.
Yeah, what about you, Willie? I mean, as Michael said, he should have scored that opportunity he had last week. Such a powder puff shot. But apart from that, he started well, and he's liking his new kind of role under Rodgers. And like Ross said, he's not having to dig it at Hans Postecoglou. He's just saying what he prefers and styles of management, and that's fair enough. But where do you stand on Matt O'Reilly? Staying or going?
Oh no, he'll still be here. A magic player as well, by the way. Even when everybody was on his back last year, I was his biggest fan. I just think he's one of these players that can. Rodgers talked about how he needs quality players that can impact or change a game, and Matt O'Reilly is definitely that. He could be playing a 4 out of 10 the whole match, being stinking, and then he just plays that one pass, and it's an assist for us to score a goal. And we need that, especially with Europe. We're going to need every ounce of quality we've got, and I think, like you said, every interview he's been in, he's talking about how much he's loving his time now, more so under Brendan. Brendan, and so I don't think he'll be going, especially when you hear the team. I mean, Bologna. I can understand if it's another team in Europe and it's a decent side, but Bologna doesn't frighten me. And it's probably bullshit because I fucking hate rumours.
Oh, well, there we go. Until the scarf's above the head. But I'm with you, since I think he'll stay. I think he's enjoying his football. That only bodes well for us. But Willie, we're finally back in paradise tomorrow against St Johnstone. I think one of the reporters asked Rodgers, is he expecting a reaction? He said no, he just wants the team to play the football. Again, the panic, I think he's trying to say is a wee bit over the top, which is fair enough. We've talked about that. But what are you hoping to see against St Johnstone tomorrow? Are you hoping to see a comfortable victory, goals, good attacking play, being on the front foot, kind of maybe be the opposite of what we've seen over the last 3 games?
Well, I would disagree with that because I don't think we looked atrocious the first 2 games.
Not atrocious. That's not on it. That's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, we scored 7 goals in 2 games and we were poor. I mean, what are we going to do when we're electric and on it? That's what I would say.
10 goals in 1 game. How about that? Hurry up, Ross is nearly sleeping.
Is that Tony? No, yeah, I think for all the, I don't want to say keyboard warriors online, all the hate that's been coming online, I think they need a performance. And yep, absolutely, we're always going to be there. That's aye, absolutely. We've been in far like, we're not in a bad situation here. We've been in a lot worse situations. When I was younger, we won fuck all. Now we're winning everything. It's terrible. Yeah, no, I expect a performance. It's going to be interesting because we've got a big game obviously coming up in the following week.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting with the injuries that are out, the sort of guys that are going to come in. I'm actually really looking forward to it tomorrow. I'm going to sit down and have a couple of beers, and hopefully we turn out a good performance. But again, all that matters is I just want 3 points at the end of the day. I can see what we're doing. I can see what the whole transition and the direction we're moving in, and I expect a comfortable win because I don't think St Johnstone have been at it. So fingers crossed we get a good performance, because I don't think we need to have a fucking like blown out the water 6-0 performance, but I would like it to shut a few people up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it feels like we haven't done one of these in a while, Willie. Score and lineup prediction.
Oh. So Abada's not officially out, is it? Is that just a rumour?
I'm going to go if he's out, because I've seen a lot of people in the chat again saying it, so I'm going to go if he's out.
Nah, I'm not going. He's out. Because I'm starting.
Right, okay. well, okay.
That'll be a bit of debate, but I don't think... It looks like the gaffer said Johnston's fit to play, so I'm assuming he's going to start, which is a massive, massive boost for us.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about that physicality and steel. That boy's got it in abundance, so it'll be great to have him back. Obviously, Hart's going to be in goals. Lager Beichel. Is it Lager Beichel?
Bielka.
Bielka.
Lager Bielka is obviously going to play, and it's interesting who's going to be alongside him. We've got Scales and Awata.
Awata. Yeah.
Johnston can play centre half.
So he can. Johnston might play in there with Ralston. Aye, that might be interesting to see. I would probably go. Did I go Scales or Awata? What are you shaking your head at?
Just even at the thought of Johnston playing centre half. It's like that.
I think that's what did he not play right
back three?
Back three?
He plays in that back three.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
More so Ralston also was like.
I think Scales had a decent pre-season, so I would probably plump for him at centre half. I think that's probably who Rodgers will go with. 100% Taylor all day. I think that the criticism's been a bit, for me, is another bit of an overreaction. We're 3 games into a season. He's been brilliant for us the past 2 seasons, so I think he'll continue to do well. The midfield 3, Calmack, O'Reilly and Home. Really like the look of Home. I think he has got a bit of physicality about him. He's been putting in challenges and getting right in about it. He can drive out with the ball and pass the ball well. So I really like the look of him. I hope we can continue to give him minutes, because I really think he can thrive in this team. And my front 3 would be Maeda, Kyogo, and I would stick with Abada, because again I think he's had a bit of unfair criticism. He's one of our biggest goal threats in that team, other than Kyogo, which I don't think we've got a lot. Like, O'Reilly is brilliant. He's got great vision, but his goal return's not as good as I would hope it to be for somebody coming from midfield. Home and Calmack are obviously 2 kind of more sitting players. They're not going to get you goals. And Maeda, I'll never ever diss Maeda, because what he does for the team is unbelievable. Going forward as well, but as a goal threat, it's not as potent as others on the side. So I think Abada's super valuable. And I understand he is inconsistent, and there's times he can go missing. But I'm of the thought he can go missing for 8 to 9 minutes, as long as that 1 minute he's on it and he can get that goal that could win us a game. And other than Kyogo, I don't think there's anybody else in the side that's as good, as big a goal threat as he is, and that's why I would have him in team.
Your score prediction?
2-0.
2-0. It's a tasty lineup, by the way. And Ross, same to you. What are you hoping to see? You hoping to see that reaction that Roger said he doesn't want to see because he knows the performance is coming? You want the swashbuckling 6-0 victory, or you just want the 3 points, as San Fran said, with no injuries, and just stay top of the table?
I would take something similar to a similar sort of performance to the Ross County or Aberdeen. As long as we win, that's the most important thing. What I will say is, if ever there was a game that you wanted off the back of Sunday at St Johnstone at home, as well I said, they're relegation fodder. They're not looking too good. I think was it East Fife or something beat them 4-0 in the
Sterling Albion.
So Sterling Albion. I mean 4-0. Do you know what I mean? I fancy Celtic strongly tomorrow. A great performance would be nice, but first and foremost, 3 points and just get back to winning ways and then go for there. But in terms of the lineup, I tried to have a bit of a brainstorm in the chat. What, have I got paint on my elbow or something?
No.
Aye, we were talking in the chat during the week about different formations we could play at Ibrox and stuff like that. Just to try
mine got fucking shot down straight away by you two. Mine was quite tasty.
Well, I was thinking about going with a diamond, but when you're playing with a diamond, you need your fullbacks to be strong, getting up and down the line. I don't think Greg Taylor could bring that, so he is the reason that I probably wouldn't go with a diamond, but I would probably just stick with the 4-3-3. Certainly the Mora anyway. I'll go obviously Hart and goals. I would bring Alistair Johnson back in at right back. I think he needs to play at Ibrox. He needs to get at least 60, 70 minutes under his belt.
Yep.
Even if he can get the full game, even better. So I'd play him at right back. Obviously Lager Bielka. And I would go. I'm more tended. I would tend to more go with a natural, like more natural centre half than Awata. So I would go with Scales. I would just stick with Greg Taylor because, again, like I said at the start of the season, I think Greg Taylor needs to play at Ibrox. Midfield 3. I think we need to get Cal McGregor a bit further up the park. The way Rodgers wants to play, obviously a bit more slower. I think he would be more effective further up. So I would play Awata, and then McGregor and O'Reilly, and then my front 3 would be with an eye on Ibrox. I want to get the team as close as possible to the team I would play at Ibrox. So I would play Maeda on the left, Kyogo through in the middle, and Yang on the right.
You might have 4 new players for Ibrox.
We might, I know. True.
What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 3-0 Celtic.
Perfect. Now, I don't need to do my lineup prediction because you literally said what I was going to say. So
Me?
Nice.
First time we've agreed.
Me or what?
I would go. You?
Me.
I would go 3-0 Celtic. It's like as well what Roger said. I mean, you have to look at it like his performance is going to come. We're getting there bit by bit. The results matter more now. Getting the points on the board. They've already dropped points. We cannot afford to drop points before we go into this game at Ibrox next week. It's a crucial game. The psychological aspect of it. We all know the first kind of Glasgow derby game of the season is important. McGrandley comes in. Celtic doing 3-0 all penalty kicks. I don't know if the officials would be that kind of. But I mean, in terms of
Stephen, just
go ahead.
See, when we're talking about lineups here, I thought it was really interesting in the comments, and we've talked about it this week. And Ross has talked about a diamond. You've talked about a 3-5-2 yourself. Under Ange, that was never a possibility. He's never. Ange would rather put the square pegs and round holes as long as it suited his system.
I haven't even seen it.
Whereas,
see, I don't see the comments like you do.
Ange would have rather put, like I said, square pegs and round holes just to fit his system. Whereas we all know Brendan, I would not be surprised tomorrow if he did go 3-5-2 and totally change it up because he's more than capable and he's totally got the capability to do so. He showed it at previous clubs, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did go to that. And I think when we talk about Europe coming up, that's massive because Ange had plan A. If it doesn't work, throw more players on and still do plan A. Whereas, and I'm not knocking plan A because plan A was fucking pretty good when Ange was here. Pretty much the best I've seen in my time. But I just seen Brian Williams there. No thanks. No again, please. Mickey Johnson up front. We don't need another striker. We've got Mickey Johnson coming back.
Fuck off.
He'll be fine. Bring Lewis Morgan back.
but I would, like I say, I think it's a great asset to have in Rod and Brendan coming in that we can mix it up, and I think that could be invaluable in Europe. As much as we don't want to see, like Ross said earlier, the kind of way the team across the city have managed to scrape results through. I think there's a time to go out attacking, and there's a time to maybe kind of change that up a bit. And Brendan's definitely capable of that, and it's interesting in the comments people saying that they would maybe play different because we've not seen that for years and years and years. So it would be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we did it tomorrow.
It's the flexibility angle of it as well, isn't it?
Aye. See, the Rangers playing Sunday.
They play tomorrow.
They play tomorrow, do they?
Yeah, up in Ross County.
Are they the early kickoff?
12:30. Yeah.
Fuck, I was going to say, I thought they were playing on the Sunday. I was like, that's a really good, even at this early in the season, for us to go 6 points clear of them with Ibrox next week.
Is there a second leg? Is there a second leg during the week next week as well?
Aye.
Yeah.
That's big. Yeah. That's big. I also think it's funny that we've got no centre halves and everybody's right to play 3 centre halves.
But here, I do want to say to everyone as well, I appreciate everyone getting involved in the comments, and again, get involved with the Super Six. The league pin is literally going along the screen at the bottom there. It's good crack. We'll be reading the table out every week. And in terms of the podcast, you two, the Cray twins, have you enjoyed it?
Very much so, aye.
Tonight, I don't want that to tar things. The kind of the stuff that went on with Frank, and there's no hard feelings with me, Frank. If you do watch this back, I've made my feelings known, but I love debate and I love people disagreeing. I like Stephen. I think some of our best podcasts have been when we're all disagreeing and having debate, and it does get feisty at times, but we're never going to fall out with anybody or argue or anything like that. And it's all passion for our football club, and I love it. Like this is what I love. Coming on here, I said to you before we came on, I've had a fucking nightmare of a week at work. All I wanted was to drink a beer and talk Celtic, and it just makes my week. I don't know what I would do with it, this podcast now. And everybody that comments, it's brilliant. I love that they stick with us, and the comments, the guys, everybody knows their stuff. So,
yeah, and everyone gets involved as well. So, I mean, that's the great thing. And we're looking forward to this game tomorrow. We'll be all watching it, and again, we'll be back Monday again talking about it, and hopefully a positive light and more transfer news coming in. Lewis Palmer seems to be the one that's up and coming, a 4-year deal apparently. He's left his club today. So what?
I hope we sign Nabdy, and I hope we get through the group stage of Champions League, and then everybody that's been going, we need to improve the squad, I can just go, aye, Davey, aye.
And do you know what I'll do just in that? We started new coming into this podcast with weird hand movements. We're going to end on that comment there, and we'll be back again Monday evening. To everybody, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.